How you guys doing? This is Low Budget Pokemon. Today I want to share with you guys my first cross-grading experience with PSA, or I should say not cross-grading, but resubmission and cross-grading. So I have a very small submission here, about 7 cards, but I think are pretty well selected. So prior to this year, maybe I've been focusing on collecting some PSA 9s because they were more affordable. And I've selected some that I thought were strong candidates for cross-grading or resubmission. So I'll share with you these cards right now. So actually the first two are Great Felt Hats. These were not cross-graded. These were actually from Raw. So these are kind of the exception to the pile. But as you can see here, I did get 10s across the board. I did get these from Pokemon Center. So I am basically 2 for 2 in terms of the Great Felt Hat Pikachus. I don't have any more, but definitely very happy with those grades. So the first card is this Poncho Pikachu half art. So let me find the tag. So this was the PSA 9 tag that was there before. I bought this in a PSA 9 I would say about 2 years ago at this point for about $150. I saw that the PSA 10 prices are like 10x that now, so I thought this would be a good candidate for regrading. And you can see here that this did come back as a PSA 9. Okay, so no improvement of grade there. So the next card I want to show you is the other Poncho. Okay, so I thought that maybe, right, I bought these separately. Both for about $150 about 2 years ago, both as a PSA 9. So this one as a PSA 9 shown here. And you can see here that that was an improvement in the grade. So at minimum, I thought that I could just, I could resubmit these. I would get a sequential cert in PSA 9. But I was pleasantly surprised that this actually turned out to be a PSA 10 candidate. And so this was definitely a success in terms of cross-grading. And one thing to note here is that this card here also has a print line. So these cards are actually notorious for print lines. So there's always a debate, right? Like you see a print defect, manufacturing defect, if you will, and how will the graders handle that? Well, this does have a line. It doesn't show up really well, but you can see here that the grader just still gave it a 10. So that is one example of how you can have a print line and still get a 10. So I did get an upgrade here to 110. Now this one is a little interesting. I'm very happy with this grade as well. So this is a PSA 9. I bought this card for about $500. This was probably 2 years at this point as a CGC Blue Label 8. Okay, so you can see that it went from a CGC 8 to PSA 9. Very happy with this grade. The issue with this card at the time was that there was a corner damage. You basically, what I did was I just cracked it out, pressed it between a book, and then flattened out the corner. And you basically can't see the dent in the corner. Okay. Otherwise, I would say that the centering is a 10 out of 10. Surface is a 10 out of 10. There is, because the corner was damaged, you can see here that there was a little whiting right there. That probably was what gave it a 9. I think the grader was pretty generous. If they had taken a little bit more time to look at the condition of this card, I would say this is probably more of a PSA 8. So I'm very happy that it came back a PSA 9. So that was a success in cross-grading. The next one up is a Unbroken Bond Gardevoir Sylveon GX. So this got a PSA 9, and I received it as a PSA 9. About $100 card at the time. PSA 9s, I think, are more expensive now. Not exactly sure why this got a PSA 9. Maybe it's a little bit thick on the bottom than on the top. But I would say this is probably one of the better centered cards that I have. Not exactly sure, but not a success there. I think just straight across. Maybe if this card goes up in a PSA 10, if the value goes up probably close to $2,000-3,000, maybe this will be a regrade candidate, but that's further down the road if that ever happens. And finally, this last one is a Champion's Path Zard. I did get a PSA 8 on it. I bought this card raw, but I would say out of all these cards here, this was probably the strongest candidate for a PSA 10. I would say the centering is basically a 10 out of 10. I don't see any surface damage. I have to take a closer look to see what happened. But this did get an 8. You can see it's pretty well centered. Very strong candidate for a PSA 8, PSA 10. Yes. So my final thoughts about this: I'm pretty happy with the submission. It's a very small submission. You know, there were 2 Great Fail Hat Pikachus that came back 10s. But in terms of regrades, you know, this was a success, this PSA 10 here, and then also the CGC PSA 9 was also a success. And then obviously a couple of candidates that came back the same grades. So my general thought is, you know, with the amount of cards that PSA is grading and where this hobby is, I think there's probably a cap, or like PSA is a little bit more cognizant in terms of how many 10s they're giving out, right? So if you start off with a couple of really strong cards in a PSA 10, they probably want to average out the submission, right? So even if all cards are strong PSA 10 contenders, objectively speaking, they should be getting 10s. But subjectively, because the graders are human, they probably want to have a good average across the board, right? So you'll get some 10s, you'll get some 9s, right? You'll get some 9s, and then you'll probably get like an 8, right? So I think this is a pretty even spread. So let's move this out of the way a little bit, right? So if you kind of assume this to be some kind of, you know, some kind of average, right? So 3 10s, 3 9s, and an 8. I think that's pretty well spread, right? So this could have easily swung, you know, this way as well. But I think they want to achieve some kind of balance in terms of how many 10s they want to give out, right? So if that really is the case, maybe a couple of these cards may be regrade candidates, right? So for example, these 3. I won't regrade them for now, I don't think. But yes, so I think that's definitely something to keep in mind, right? So how is PSA kind of averaging out your submissions? I've heard of submissions basically getting, you know, rocked across the board, right? So let me know your thoughts of how this PSA submission went, and thank you for your attention on this video. Hope to see you guys next time.